Question number 5, Chris Hipkins.
Speaker, my question is to the Prime Minister and asks, in the inquiry being conducted by David Henry into the leaking of the Kitteridge report on the GCSB, are ministers being interviewed on oath? If not, why not?
Honourable Bill English on behalf of the Prime Minister.
Mr Speaker, on behalf of the Prime Minister, I'm advised that the inquiry commissioned by DPMC Chief Executive Andrew Kibblewhite and GCSB Director Ian Fletcher has not interviewed ministers under oath. The inquiry is not yet complete, and I do not think it is appropriate to get into discussions about the detail of it while it is being conducted in order to preserve its independence. I can inform the member that the Prime Minister's Office and the Chief Executive of DPMC made it clear to all ministerial officers they are expected to cooperate fully with the inquiry. The terms of reference for the inquiry were publicly released in April and are available to members.
Supplementary question, Chris Hipkins.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Were ministers interviewed during the Rebstock inquiry into the leak of Foreign Affairs documents interviewed under oath? If so, why isn't the same standard being applied in this case?
Honourable
Mr Speaker, that is a matter for Mr David Henry, who is conducting the inquiry. He has that capacity, but I have to say that trying to direct him how to conduct the inquiry will lead to probably stronger criticism that it is no longer independent. It is an independent inquiry by a senior civil servant who served not only both governments but in the Australian and New Zealand public services, and it's our view that he is best left to conduct the inquiry according to the procedures he believes will be effective, and the report, of course, will be available to everybody.
Supplementary question, Chris Hipkins.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Will all ministers in receipt of the report prior to its leaking to the media be questioned on oath in the investigation? If not, why are some ministers being interviewed but not others?
Honourable
Mr Speaker,
Bill English on behalf of the Prime Minister.
That is a matter for Mr David Henry. I'm quite sure that if the Prime Minister's Office was issuing instructions daily to him about how to conduct the inquiry, we would be getting ferociously questioned in here about interfering with it. So it's either independent or it's not. In this case, it is independent. It's not how the previous Labor government did it, but it's how we did it. And in fact, anyone being questioned in that inquiry, I am sure will be held to a very high standard of transparency and honesty.
Supplementary question, Chris Hipkins.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Do the terms of reference for the inquiry into the unauthorised release of information relating to the GCSB Compliance Review report allow for, and I quote, the conduct of formal interviews if the inquirer believes these are warranted by the facts, end quote? If so, why has one minister been interviewed several times while others haven't been interviewed at all?
Honourable Bill English on behalf of the Prime Minister.
Mr Speaker, that is a matter for Mr David Henry, who is conducting the inquiry. As I understand it, the inquiry has some time to run, and he will have the opportunity to interview whoever he likes and ask any question he likes.
Supplementary question, the Right Honourable Winston Peters.
Why has this inquirer not asked of the various ministers, and Mr Peter Dunn in particular, for their phone records where the evidence is available? Why not is what I'm asking the minister responsible, right? Why aren't the phone records in which the evidence lies, in this case, being asked of ministers and in particular Mr Peter Dunn?
Honourable Bill English on behalf of the Prime Minister. Mr Speaker, the member can't know actually how the inquiry is being conducted. It's been conducted by Mr David Henry as an independent inquiry by a senior civil servant, and I'm sure he will make whatever inquiries he needs to try and achieve the objective of finding out how the report was leaked.
Any question?
Supplementary question, Right Honourable Winston Peters.
Why would anyone have confidence in an inquiry headed by David Henry, who is not taking evidence on oath, not keeping an electronic record of witness answers to questions, is not demanding phone records of particular ministers, and whose forensic investigation incompetence was revealed when he jumped ship before the wine box inquiry? Why would we not believe? Oh, no. Oh, yes, he did.
Order.
Point of order.
Order.
Point of order.
Order. There may be some controversy in the question, but the member has a right to ask it.
I'll ask it again. Why would anyone have confidence in an inquiry headed by David Henry, who is not taking evidence on oath, not keeping an electronic record of witness answers to questions,
Point of order.
is not demanding...
Mr Speaker, as far as the member asked the question, I was prepared, getting ready to answer it, and then he popped up to ask it
The difficulty I have is the member was halfway through his question. He had not finished. I couldn't hear because the level of interjection that was occurred on the national benches. The member would please ask his question, and if we can complete his question...
I am dying to ask this question. Why would anyone have confidence in an inquiry headed by David Henry, who is not taking evidence on oath, not keeping an electronic record of witness answers to questions, is not demanding phone records, and whose forensic incompetence saw him jump ship from the IRG just before the wine box inquiry was so damaging to IRD? What about this bespeaks an in-house snow job?
Honourable Bill English, on behalf of the Prime Minister.
Mr Speaker, I wonder if we should have an inquiry into how that member seems to know so much about how the inquiry's been conducted.
Order. Order.
Point of order.
Order. I have a point of order.
Yes.
From the right honourable Winston
Mr Speaker, he cannot turn a question very legitimate into that sort of answer. But I did write to David Henry, and I got an answer which said, I won't tell you.
And that's not a point of order. Now, with the Bill English, on behalf of the Prime Minister, please answer the question.
Mr Speaker, on behalf of the Prime Minister, I do not know how Mr Henry is conducting his inquiry. I'm surprised that member seems to have detailed knowledge of it. I can't help wondering whether his criticism of the inquiry may be preparing the ground for the fact that he can't quite prove the allegations he made yesterday and is now going to blame the inquiry for failing to back him up.
Point of order. Point of order.
Point of order.
Mr. Speaker, again,
order.
Again, all the Minister has to do is answer the question.
And
he didn't.
No, I believe
most unsatisfactorily at that.
The Minister answered the question adequately.
Point of order.
Right, Dr Russell Norman.
Mr Speaker, the issue here is about Standing Order 3812, which says that the reply to any question must be concise and confined to the subject matter of the question asked. Mr Peters was not the subject matter of the question. The Minister's answer was an attack on Mr Peters, and he brought him into it in various ways. If Mr Peters had to put himself in the question, fair enough, but he wasn't in the question.
I invite the member, when he returns to his office, to look very carefully at the question that was asked. It certainly had a good level of opinion from the member that asked the question. Supplementary question, Chris Hipkins.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. In light of the Minister's comment just now, does he intend to open a further inquiry to ascertain who leaked to the Honourable Winston Peters the fact that the Honourable Peter Dunn had been interviewed about the leak of the Kitteridge report? If not, why not?
Honourable Bill English, on behalf of the Prime Minister.
No, Mr Speaker, we won't be opening another inquiry because this one is independent and will report fully. I have noticed, though, that when there is an inquiry into a leak to the Labor Party, it's called a witch hunt, and when there's an inquiry into some other kind of leak, they say it's incompetent.
Supplementary question, Mr Speaker.
Supplementary question, Chris Hipkins.
Mr Speaker, why won't he launch an inquiry into the leak about the inquiry into the leak?
Honourable Bill English.
The reason is because I suspect Mr Peters already knows the outcome of the inquiry into the inquiry about the leak.
Point of order.
Point of order.
Mr Speaker.
Order.
Mr Speaker. Point of order.
I'll just try and get some silence. Order. A point of order has been raised. The member has a right to raise a point of order, and it will be heard in silence.
Sir, if the Deputy Prime Minister is going to keep drawing me into the inquiry, and I'm going to short-circuit things by saying all the evidence is in those phone records, and your minister's gone.
I don't believe that's an adequate point of order at all. Are there any further supplementaries? Otherwise, we move to question number 6 in the name of the Right Honourable Winston Peters.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Something new. Of the Minister of Transport.